Every life has a story, and every story is worth sharing. Your story, my story, and our story speak of victory and defeat, joy and sorrow, resilience and vulnerability. They are not just our story, they are Christ's story in us. They are Kingdom Stories from Down Under.
Welcome to another episode of Kingdom Stories. I'm Natanael Costea, and today I have with me a good friend, Matt Rooker. He serves as the executive pastor at One Church. It's also called the Light on the Hill because their church is in a beautiful spot overlooking the ocean. It is on top of a hill and it's just wonderful. Matt has 8 children and he's a legacy builder, not only in his family. He runs a lot of incentives and initiatives in the city for young people, and it's just an honor to have him with us. Welcome to our little humble show here, Matt.
Thank you for having
I've
me.
known you for about, 8 or 9 years, I think.
Yeah.
It's just, I know your wife as well. She's shared a few times here as well, testimonies, and your boys and the girls, and obviously I see a lot on social media.
Yeah, that's right. Won't escape that.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for on short notice. Thanks for coming here.
Honoured to be here.
We call this Kingdom Stories from Down Under because we believe that the people in our city, the people that we journey with all the time, they've got tremendous stories, and these need to be heard. These need to be told, and you have beautiful story. And
Thank you.
I can't wait to hear where it all began for you. Did you grow up in Australia or in England?
No, I grew up in the UK.
Okay.
So I was born in the Midlands in Wolverhampton.
Okay.
And
Wolverhampton?
Wolverhampton, yeah.
Oh, there's a football club.
Yeah. Very good football club at the moment, but they never used to be for a long time.
But they do have a rich history, don't they?
Very rich history. They were probably, I think, one of the first English teams to win the European League, I think, at one point. Back in the 70s or 60s, I can't remember, a long time ago.
Mind you, they're doing pretty well at the moment in the Premier League.
Yeah, they've got a good coach at the moment, so good manager.
They're in Europe as well, aren't they? They're in Europe.
Yep, I believe so. I obviously coming over here, I haven't been able to follow them as much. But yeah, my dad's a very avid Wolves supporter.
Of course.
But when they weren't doing so well, he was a Saints supporter first of Southampton, so because that's where he lives,
I think they played Southampton recently. Anyway, that's the only way we know England.
Yeah,
okay.
right.
We only know about the football clubs.
Yeah.
That's geography, history, everything.
You know where it is.
Those are the lenses that we look at. So, how old were you when you left England?
I was 18 when I came out to the UK.
So you grew up there? Yeah,
pretty much grew up there. I lived in Wolverhampton till we were about, I think, I was 6, my sister was about 7 or 8 years old. Mm-hmm. But when we moved down to Southampton, my parents got divorced. Oh. And so after the divorce, lived down there for up until I think the age I was about 10 or 11 years old.
With your mum?
Yeah, with my mum. My mum met another man. He became my stepfather. My dad obviously met another woman, and we didn't see my dad for a long time, and we consequently moved up to the north end of England again, up to Redditch, which is near Birmingham area.
Yeah.
So
you grew up first in Wolverhampton, and then in Southampton.
Yeah.
What was it like being in England as a kid?
It was actually, I really do have good memories of it. Mm-hmm. I think part of the issue was the transition, I suppose, from because as you know, England's really varied in its, even though it's such a small country, it's vast amount of difference between different regions. So coming from Wolverhampton to Southampton, it was a very kind of sort of posh area and everything. It was it was in Chelmsford, and then moving there back up to Redditch. Wasn't a fun time because I had this different accent, and everyone thought that you're a bit posh or whatever, and it was hard to make friends, but got there in the end.
Were you playing football?
No, I didn't play football. No, I didn't really do a lot of sport when I was younger. My fondest memories of sport is just playing soccer on the fields.
Mm-hmm.
But hated rugby because in February the ground is rock solid, and when you fall on that stuff, you feel it. You just get gashed up. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And then, what happened then? You, what brought you to Australia?
Well, the funny thing was that when I was living in Redditch, and that's where I did sort of like middle school and high school.
Yeah.
I had a friend who I met when I was, in year 10 or year 9, year 10.
Yeah.
And we really got on well. And he came out to Australia with his mum when he was turning 16. And we kept the friendship open.
So they moved here?
Yeah, so they moved here. They moved down to Belden, down in just down the road here.
Yeah.
And he always said, come over. But it was friendships all evolved around the one thing, and that was drugs. So we kind of didn't really do anything else but hang out and do drugs together. And then when we came out to Australia, when I came out to Australia, we were still knocking around doing the same things.
Was it heavy stuff or more smoking marijuana part?
Oh.
Or more?
It started off with, obviously, first with cigarettes.
Yeah.
Then went into marijuana. I mean, it started young, around about 12, 13.
Mm-hmm. Was it common?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was extremely common. I mean, I was very kind of sheltered living down the south.
Yeah.
But then when I moved up to the north of England, and
it was everywhere, access.
Everywhere, and as soon as you
not
get
expensive, you could get your hands on it.
No, it wasn't expensive at all. And a lot of the guys I was hanging around, because I was kind of like rejected by a lot of the sort of popular kids, I kind of like hang around with the guys that people just left alone.
Yeah.
And obviously they weren't bad guys.
No,
do you know what I mean? But they, like, obviously they're all involved, and they had, broken backgrounds and that as well. So we kind of like were all broken people hanging out together, and and that's where we kind of find a tribe.
Was it alcohol as well, or not so much? More just drugs?
Yeah, just anything really. Anything that can just sort of like
take your mind off
stuff, or just having a laugh. So we would, get cider and all that kind of stuff, and just, I'm talking the rocket fuel stuff that's like 9% or whatever like that. We would just all be involved, drinking, smoking weed, but then our lives just slowly evolved around, the weekend, or where you can score and which mates have got it, and everything like that. And that didn't really stop for a big part of my life. But I think really with really with not having dad in the focus, and a stepdad around, he was a good man, do you know what I mean? But you kind of like you kind of feel a bit of a lost anchor, if you know what I mean. There's no one grounding you, and you don't feel that same kind of connection with a stepdad as you do with your own father.
Sure.
And so obviously I felt more of a connection with the guys that I hung around with. And
did you have that awareness at the time, or not really?
The only awareness that I had was that I didn't fit in. I mean, obviously, when you're kind of part of a blended family, it's your mum, but it's a different father. And then there's a sister as well, but she's like, half sister. I mean, she's my sister.
Really.
Yeah.
Not really your sister, but she's your
sister. Yeah. But the thing is that you intuitively recognize that you're no longer sort of part of the family, but you are, if you know what I mean. You feel this kind of disjointedness, and not only that, but when I was, starting to turn into adolescence and stuff like that, some of my behaviours and the way I was, growing, you would have like, mum say like, oh, you're just like your father. Well, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
So you're kind of being compared against something that you have no reference point for.
Mm.
And then, by the time I got to kind of 14, 15, my dad got back in contact after about 7 years.
I was going to ask, where did Dad get back into the picture?
Yeah, so, when I was about 14.
Was he living nearby?
No, he was still in Southampton.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like a successful businessman. Very busy man. But at the time we re-engaged with him, me and my sister, he was also into all that scene as well. So, I connected with him when I was 14, kind
so
of 15.
both you and your sister have the same father?
Yeah, same father, but my other sister.
Yeah.
So me and my sister, and then there's my half-sister as well.
Is that a true half-sister? Was she born by your mum?
Yeah, born by my mum. Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of like it was a bit of a shock meeting him after all those years.
So he came to visit you up north?
Yeah, he reached out to my mum and wanted to meet up.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it was arranged by mum or whatever like that because of what was happening with me at school and the drug use and that. But when I first met him, it was like in a hotel near Birmingham, I think it was. Yeah. And as soon as I met him, he pulled out a big bag of weed and said, roll up or whatever. And that, I thought he was just the coolest person right there.
Did he smoke with you? Or
He smoked with us. And, when I...
So that's why you looked like your dad. That's why you were doing things that your dad was doing.
Well, the thing is, I don't think he ever used to be involved in all that. But I think with the family that... It's a bit of a strange story because when my mum and dad divorced, right, it was because my dad was cheating with another woman down in Southampton. My mum found out and she confronted him and they got divorced. Okay. So we used to for a time visit my dad, have shared, but then he wouldn't rock up or he wouldn't show up sometimes, and then he says, next week, or he'd forget birthdays.
So you gradually grew apart.
But then also there was a court case over maintenance. So my dad was able to prove that his business was not profitable, and the courts awarded me and my sister 5p each a year maintenance from my dad. Yeah. So the business is, but he was still driving around in luxury vehicles and stuff like that, but the businesses were all in his new wife's name.
Okay.
And then so there was this whole other dynamic of a family that we would come and visit and be a part of, and I had cousins on that side and everything. But then coming back 7 years later, I'd found out that my dad had divorced this lady,
the
second one, and had an affair with her sister.
Oh.
Yeah, and then her sister divorced her husband
to be with him,
and then consequently the one he divorced became a lesbian.
Oh.
And my step cousins became my stepsisters, and my stepbrothers and sister became my step cousins, and they all worked for my dad's company. It's one big happy family, which was just
messed up.
It was just messed up and bizarre, and they're all into this scene as well. The older girls were all into drug culture and everything, and Dad was all involved. And so a couple of years later on, from 14, 15, my dad was obviously reaching out to us, and I was almost coming to blows with my stepdad, and I decided to leave home. So I left home at 16 and lived with my sister. She'd already moved out. And
same area, same kind of...
Yeah, just in a little apartment.
You still went to school?
No, I'd left school by then. And so at 16 I left home. 17 I was still kind of turning 17 with my sister living on a couch and that. And then I reached out to my dad, and at the same time as well, that guy who came over to Australia, Andy, he reached out about getting in contact again. So we kept contact, and I went to live with my dad down in Southampton and worked for his company.
What were you doing?
So it was in industrial job services. So anything from sandblasting, old gas tanks, worked at the Fort Eastleigh plant as well, doing clean up and shut down operations, anything kind of industrial that needed refabrication or cleaning or whatever like that. We were involved, army kitchens, just so many different things. It was really good money.
Yeah.
And that's...
Were you saving anything?
No. And that was part of the problem because, you know, I'm not trying to dishonour my dad. My dad wasn't in a good place. He's not like that now, but he wasn't in a good place. And, you know, he got onto cocaine and he was really struggling during that time in his life. And I was involved in that as well. So I got onto cocaine as well with him.
Expensive drugs.
Yeah, I mean, well, in the UK, it's relatively cheap if you're earning good money. But obviously, Australia was a saving grace. And I think my dad saw that as well. So he was like, I'll pay for you to go out there and be with your mate. And then got me on a work visa, helped me sort out my visa.
Yeah.
And I think it was the best decision.
So you were about 18 when you came here?
Yeah, I came here in November 1997.
Okay.
When I was 18 years old, just turned 18 in September, and came to live with my mate over here in Belden.
Nice.
Yeah. So escaped the UK.
Yeah. So you came to Australia, fresh off the boat, but off the plane this time.
Yeah.
Ready to make a new life. Not really considering going back, but more just opening up to the new season of your life here.
Yeah, I'd always wanted to travel around, and I'd always wanted to come to Australia ever since I was like about 8 or 9 years old.
Did you leave everything behind? Did you know that you weren't going back? Did you come to move here, or did you come just to see what it was like?
It's hard to explain really, but I've always wanted to come here, and I knew I'd meet someone out here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an intuitive thing that I knew, and my mum at the time knew that I wasn't coming back, so she felt that I wasn't coming back, and you know, that's so saying goodbye to her at the time, it was pretty hard for her, but I was just like, it's an adventure, you know.
Yeah.
So it was great, and
was it your first overseas trip as such?
Yeah. So, apart from going to Spain, went on holiday, but
they don't count.
First, going across
Spain
the world by myself.
That's
right. It's a holiday. This is a weekend away.
And what job did you have when you came to Perth? What did you begin doing?
Well, my friend had got me a job at the local supermarket in Joondalup, which is a Woolworths now. It used to be called Advantage Supermarket.
Okay.
And I worked there in the dairy section, just, you know, stacking shelves or whatever like that. And that was it, really. We were just hanging out together and still smoking weed over here. But obviously the cocaine wasn't in the mix. So relatively still pretty clear-headed, you know, over here.
Your hobbies? Beach? Surfing? No?
No, it's still just evolved around drugs. That was
Career?
it.
Not thinking about schooling or
nothing. It was just a daze. Everything was just a daze. You know, it was just, where can we score?
Yeah.
Where's the next party?
Yeah.
That's all it was, and that's all my focus was.
What was your first car in Australia?
Oh my goodness, that wasn't till a long time. I think the first car was a Nissan Datsun Bluebird, which was a horrible car.
No power steering.
No power steering. No aircon.
My wife had one of those too.
They were just
shocking.
They were a curse, those cars.
Yeah. Mind you, those were the days.
Yeah. You could drive them then still.
And when did you meet Hayley?
Well, I met Hayley after New Year's, so the beginning. I think it was the beginning of 1998.
Oh, so very soon.
Very soon, I met her in the supermarket. So she was one of these ladies who come out and do demonstrations.
Yeah.
So she was doing Demonstration Plus, and she was doing for ice cream.
Okay.
And obviously, being ice cream, it was near my section, and I love ice cream. So I just started talking to her. She approached me first, and then it was like saying, you know, where can I put a bucket of ice and all that kind of stuff. So I showed her, and then I got talking to her. We found out we had a mutual friend at the supermarket.
Yeah.
And also, she only lived around the corner from me in Belden.
And she was from England as well.
She was from England as well. She came out here when she was 13. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she was about the same age as you?
She's a couple of years older.
Okay.
So, well, 18 months, same age as my sister. So she's,
okay.
Yeah.
And how did you invite her out?
Well, funny story. So, being at my mate's house, I saw her the next day anyway, and we got talking and started hanging out. I was going out with someone else at the time, but obviously that relationship finished pretty much straight away. And then my friend's mum found weed in my pocket from doing the washing. It was really my mate's, but I took the rap for it. It's hanging on to it for him. And she booted us out. So I was in Australia.
Both of you?
No, just me.
You.
In Australia, I had no home, nowhere to go. And the plan was to start travelling around Australia to do what I was supposed to be doing, and that's working around doing the harvest trail.
Okay.
And I told Hayley that day, I remember telling her, and she's almost bursting into tears, and she said she'd come with me. And her parents, they were amazing. They allowed me to stay 2 weeks at her house while they're on holiday.
Wow.
And then we went off down southwest, and started doing fruit picking together.
Okay.
And we were in backpacker hostels.
Yeah.
And we basically did cauliflowers and tamarillos and kiwis and all these different. Oh yeah. It
nice place.
It was, but obviously we were both into the same things.
Okay.
Before we left, her brother was a DJ in the nightclubs in Perth.
Yes.
So very much was involved in those kind of things, and music was a passion of mine as well, especially like raves and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Were you playing anything?
No, I didn't. Not then. It wasn't until much later that I started getting involved in that. But as I was saying, we would smoke weed and especially down in Manjimup, there was plenty of it down there.
Yeah.
And we got engaged on a farm down there.
I saw that photo on Facebook, eh?
Yeah, very young then.
You had a bottle in your hand and something else in the other. Were you smoking?
Yeah, I was smoking that as well.
In a singlet?
Yeah.
Didn't even dress up?
No, I didn't even dress up. It was just like, well, that was the night because we were just working. We got engaged on a farm while we were cauliflowers.
Can you actually remember it, or were you totally out?
No, I remember it. I remember those things. Because there's big moments that
of course.
But they, as I said, the day-to-day stuff of what's happening is a bit of a blur when you're stoned. But we got engaged down there, and then we came back up to Perth. We came back up to Perth, and then we were married in September that year. So,
and her parents were okay with all this?
Yeah, well, their parents very kind of like supportive, because Hayley, when she came to Australia, she told her mum and dad that she was going to marry an Englishman, even though she was out here, and he would only live around the corner. So this is how like bizarre some of this stuff gets. And then when she met me that day, she went home and told her mum. She said, "I've met the man I'm going to marry," and that was it. She knew. She just knew, and that's the thing, when I saw
scary a little bit.
Oh, it was. Well,
she made it. Look, you were a victim of her. Her doings.
She was the first woman I could hold eye contact with.
Wow.
I could like stare at her in the eyes, and it was like everything else disappeared. And I hadn't been able to do that, and it was the first woman I could spend time with and not use and move on to the next one. I just wanted to be with her, and it was just...
Was she just understanding? Did she get you, or was she caring? Affectionate?
She's just one of the most loving and easygoing people that I'd ever met, and she was very solid in who she was.
She had a good...
Yeah, she had a good grip of who she was. She was very secure.
Yeah.
And I was a very insecure puppy, and I suppose in a way she kind of made me feel safe in that sort of sense.
She was mature as well.
Very, very mature. You know, she was obviously older than me as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the fact that she wanted to come on the adventure, she wanted to just be with me.
Yes.
And it was scary because obviously with my history with my parents, I remember even, you know, starting to panic just before the wedding.
You
just
did?
like, yeah, just like,
I was going to say, why did you get married? How could you get married? I
Yeah.
mean, after all, you know, the background, you know, of your life story.
it was Hayley's mum and dad that actually really showed me that a marriage could last.
Of course.
I mean, my nan and granddad were together all their years, but just seeing another couple that,
Yeah.
you know, the way they would interact with each other, that they still loved each other
Because it
very
was still
much.
common for people to just live together, right? It wasn't, I mean, marriage wasn't a huge priority.
No, that's right. And, you know, obviously, we didn't come from a background where, you know, Christian or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
the family value wasn't really there.
no, it's not like, you know, well, you save yourself for when you're married or whatever like that. And part of the thing was, Hayley was said, well, I don't want to be with anyone else. And we just said, and I think I had to answer the question, you know, what if?
Yes.
And the question, what if, was really powerful because it was like, well, what if this is the one? What if taking a chance, you know, will I always be left with feeling, what if I walked away from it just because I'm insecure, just because I'm scared?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the leap of faith that I had to take for love. And in that's, you know, how our adventure began, I suppose.
So what were you working in town while you got married? So obviously you were doing the farming and the fruit picking, but then you came back to town and you got married.
Yeah, so we came back up to town, got married up in Hillary's Boat Harbour.
Nice.
I managed to get an apprenticeship at Woolworths, being a butcher.
Okay.
So that was good, but I was prepared to do anything.
Sure. And what was she doing?
She was still doing like different kind of temping jobs, office jobs. So, I mean, we're two young people, disposable income. We got a rental.
Did you live with? No, I was going to say, did you live with your in-laws or you lived on your own?
No, we lived with them for a bit, and then when we got married, we went into our own place and just in Belden there, and lived there for quite a few years, up until I was about 22, I think.
So when was your first child born?
Not until I was 23, I think. Yeah, 23. So 2002.
Okay. So a couple of years into your marriage kind of thing.
Yeah, so it was at least... so I was married the day after my 19th birthday. So it was almost like 4 years. Yeah. So...
that was a leap of faith, wasn't it?
It was. And that's it. I always thought I'd be the last person to get married.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd get married because I was too busy with just, you know, playing the field and not having any commitments, you know. So, yeah.
Wow. And then your son was born.
Yeah, my son was born. I was actually working for John Hughes at the time in Victoria Park.
Selling cars?
Selling second-hand cars.
He's a good man.
He is. He was a very good man, actually.
Yeah.
I've not got a bad word to say about him. He also helped out our family at one time as well.
Yes.
So, great guy. And, so I was working there. And we moved into a new house into Mirawa.
Yes.
And I kind of toned down a bit from there. Yeah. My years prior, those 4 years prior, was very much involved in the club scene, learning how to DJ and drum and bass music in the clubs on the weekends and stuff. And like I said, work was a means to an end.
You still live for the weekends, even as a married man and as a father.
Yeah, they come around very quickly now.
Yeah.
Every Sunday.
Yeah. So then you carried on like this. When did the light bulb switch on for you about life and eternal life and the meaning of life?
Look, at a young age, I was very much had a kind of bit of a Christian input, because in the UK, as you know, like when I was in school, you'd have hymns in the morning and and you'd sing songs, and I knew of Jesus, but it wasn't like part of my life in that way. We didn't go to church or anything. I think the first time that I really got an inkling of something was when I was I think I must have been about 5 or 6 years old and sitting in a primary school.
Yep.
And the teacher was reading the nativity story.
Yes.
And cutting out these paper doily snowflakes or whatever they were. And she shared this one passage that said, the angels appeared and said, "I have good news of great joy. To you this day in David's town there will be a Saviour born." Wow. And this whole kind of sense, oh wow, there's a Saviour. And I can't explain it, but there was just like this kind of warmth and joy.
Yes.
And I never forget that moment. It was really stands out to me.
Yeah.
But then obviously with the divorce and with all the other things and the transitions and that, I went to a Catholic school when I was in high school.
Yep.
And that kind of put me off guard. Studied the Book of Mark and all that kind of, but I felt that Christianity was just a tool to brainwash the masses and extract money, that the Catholic Church was the most evil kind of organisation, and and I was very much into the...
found enough evidence for that and ammunition.
Well, yeah, I think the whole environment within the Catholic school, you deal with nuns and fathers and stuff like that. It was just so foreign. Yeah. I just, and it felt like hypocrisy because you say all these different things, but there's nothing really there. It's just show. You know? So that kind of put me off. And then I was very much, my parents, my mum and stepdad, were very much into the New Age. Oh. So in my early teens, we would go to Glastonbury Festival. I'm not talking about the rock concert one. I'm talking about it's a windy, cold hill with a bunch of 50 or 100 hippies. Yeah. Bringing in the winter solstice and the summer solstice and all that kind of stuff. And
real evil.
Yeah. I won a frisbee competition once at a New Age festival, so that was pretty fun. But all the alternate stuff, all the conspiracy stuff, all the alternate stuff. And I kind of, when I got to, that period between sort of like 18 to kind of 20, 23, 24, I was very much on the kind of Buddhism pathway, very much, purpose is enlightenment. But I always felt this kind of sense that I knew that I need to be a better human being, or I need to be better, but this inability to kind of just keep it together and keep on track. Mm-hmm. And it was just, and obviously with the drugs, you open up your mind to all sorts of kind of different views and different realities. And so I had a really messed up kind of worldview where everything was a contradiction. Yeah. And there was nothing really solid. No. It was just all a mishmash of all these different religions, and all religions are right, and all this kind of... So it was a mess.
But you did have a good anchor in your wife, in Hayley. So your home life was very solid. Your relationship with your wife was very solid. With the children coming along, that was solid. Responsibility was coming into your life as well, wasn't it? As a father. Mm-hmm. When did you click that your responsibility as a father is vital to the children?
It's embarrassing to say this, but not until I was probably in my late 30s.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah. The fact was that even though I had this responsibility of having a child and,
and by then you would have had a number of children already. Yeah.
So Danny came around, and don't get me wrong, I love my kids and everything, but I was still messed up and I didn't have an identity as a father. No, not yet. I was still this kind of teenager inside experiencing fatherhood. Yeah. And I knew I had to do the right thing, so I would work and I would provide and all these kind of things, but I would still be looking to escape, still be looking to do drugs and still hang around with Hayley's brother and do DJing, and then I got into drinking, and that to me started a kind of...
Hayley was very solid in her motherhood during this time?
That's all she ever wanted to be. She just wanted to be a mother.
Did she want the kids more than you did?
I think so. I mean, for me, it was just foreign concepts.
Yeah.
It was just like fatherhood, or I didn't kind of experience it that way. My granddad was my best reference as a kind of father figure. But for her, it was just so natural, you know. And I think I put her through a lot, because no matter what she did, or no matter what job I did, or I never seemed to be happy.
Yeah.
And even with the kids, you know, I would still, you know, leave her at home with the kids or whatever like that. So, but when you're in that, it's just life, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
You don't know there's a better way, so you're just experiencing it.
So you had 3, 4, 5 children by then?
Yeah, so I had about 3 kids, and we'd moved after the first one. Danny came along. We'd about 6 months later. I told you we'd already moved into Merriwa, and then about another 6 months later, and another house came up.
Yep.
In Butler.
Yes.
And then we moved to Butler, and
were you buying or were you renting?
Just renting still.
Yeah.
New area. I started work with Di Virgilio Group, and you know, doing, you know, getting pretty solid.
Yeah.
In money coming in, but finance is still a mess. Not really having a clear plan, or not having any kind of structure in that way.
And she was holding the house together.
Yeah, she was an amazing mum. She was my stability.
Yes.
So she was like the grounding. And she would support me in whatever I did.
Yeah.
And wanted to do, but she also now had other priorities as well.
Yeah.
And so we would still party, like we would still, you know, be smoking weed and, you know, drinking and partying. We'd occasionally, you know, be involved with taking, you know, speed on the weekend and stuff like that when we go out. But we started to see an earlier stage with the young kids that we didn't want to really be in that lifestyle, because we saw other families that were all involved in that, and it was pretty horrendous. Yeah, you know, and still feel, you know, God's leading through all of it looking back. Yeah. But I was just becoming more and more kind of depressed, and turning to alcohol, and on the outside everything looked good. Yeah. You know. And
were you keeping in touch with your parents back in England?
Yeah, I was, but it was a very fractured relationship. I at one time between the age of, you know, that sort of like 19 to 24, I think I must have been around about 21. I went back to the UK to work for, I think it was 3 months, to earn a lot of money to pay off debts that I accrued here. And then,
were you in a relationship with Hayley? You were even married? Yeah. Oh, you were married, yeah.
Married, and I came over here for 3 months. The kids weren't on the scene then. Yeah. And, you know, it was a big thing, because obviously I think her parents might have been worried that I wasn't going to come back and just leave her here. But I earned the money, paid off.
So it worked?
Yeah, so it worked. But I bought back one of my English Visa debit cards, and it was connected to my dad's account. And I just started, it would work over here. And it was when, you know, the chips had just started. Yes. So this thing, I thought, like, this is great. It's broken. It's free money. Yeah. And then I get a phone call a few months later. What the is going on? Like, I've just been given a bill from my bank manager for, like, you know, must have been like about £5,000 or something like that. You know, that I've been just buying stuff. And that really damaged our relationship, really fractured it. So didn't really speak to Dad. He thought I was just a waste of space and taking advantage, you know. And he was like getting himself sorted, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it was his struggle and then your struggle, and it's just everything.
Just mess. Yeah, everything was just mess.
So when did the light come on for you? When did you click?
I was working at DVG Group, and
selling cars?
Selling cars. I had a guy called Tim Rose. So he invited me to go to church.
Was he a salesman, or he was in the group with you? He was in the...
Yeah, he was in new cars. He said, just come along to church. And it was Morley Revival Fellowship, if I remember rightly. Okay. And went there for the day. It was
with your wife or just yourself?
No, just by myself. Hayley wasn't interested in church or anything like that. And we'd been invited, when I was a apprentice butcher, we got invited once to Churchlands.
Okay.
And by one of the butchers there, we went to a home afterwards, and we never went, we just wasn't interested, you know. I just said yes because someone invited me, you know.
So did you go to Churchlands or you didn't?
Yeah, I went to Churchlands just once, went to a cell group afterwards because they had home groups afterwards. Went there. Nothing. I just, you know, it was all very nice. It was a bit weird, people waving flags and jumping around and shouting. It's a bit weird.
I hope this finishes quickly.
Yeah. So we just exited there. But yeah, then I got invited April the 6th, 2004. Okay. I remember the day because it's on my certificate. I responded to the message there. Anyone want to get baptised? Got baptised on that day there.
Instantly.
They
had a pool there.
They had it was weird. It was like a coffin full of water. I don't know. It was like center. What would happen? And I had no reference point for any of this stuff. Yes. So it was in the message. They were in the service.
No one's there. Your wife, none
Wife's not there. It's just me by myself. Just
you don't have a change of clothes?
No, they gave you a pair of shorts and a t-shirt to wear, you know.
Okay.
But I went, and the service was kicking off, and one guy stands up and speaks in tongues. I didn't know it was tongues back then. And then another lady stood up and said what was just like spoke out what was said, and then it was like a real kind of powerful atmosphere in there, you know. So I responded and baptized. Came out.
They made an altar call and you went to the front.
Yeah, went to the front.
Do you remember what took you to the front, or do you know what was happening, or it's all blurred? It's all blurred.
Like my mind is.
Were you on drugs or were you?
I wasn't on drugs then. I was. It was a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And I planned to go there. Do you know what I mean? Because he'd been asking me, so I rocked up and I don't know what. I just felt I just needed to respond.
Yeah.
And so I went there. They baptized me in the water. Came out speaking in tongues instantly, and never went back to that church again.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and the guy is like...
You got your money's worth.
Oh, man. The guy is just hounding me, like, for following me. He's going like, you've got to get into fellowship. I said, no, look, I've got my Bible. I'm fine now. Yeah. So I was saying, no, it's fine. Like, I'll be good. I've got my Bible. Because I still wanted it on my terms.
Yeah, of course.
I responded to a salvation message.
Yeah.
Had an experience. And then I kind of ran with it by myself.
Did you pray afterwards, or did you do anything after?
Yeah, I would have tongues. Yeah.
So you'd practice your tongues?
Yeah, I would speak in tongues because it was just. But then, what happens is your mind starts to tilt because you're thinking, "Have I just lost the plot?" Or do you know what I mean? And I was reading the Bible, and I thought I was being good. Yes. You know, I thought I was being a good. This is what a Christian should do. But then 2 weeks later, they're all around drinking at the dealership after work, and I hadn't had a drink for 2 weeks. Yes. And they said, "Oh, come on, like you're a good Christian boy now." Yeah, well, all the boys used to drink after work,
and they would drink.
Tim didn't drink. No, okay, he was like teetotaler, but it sounds really strange, but they were like, because they saw like Tim as maybe his disciple or whatever like that. They were trying their best to get me to drink again and be like what I was. I remember my manager sitting me in the office and saying because I wasn't selling cars anymore. Like I was trying not to lie. Yeah, and he said, "Matt, you've got to get this Jesus
out of your head.
Like get back in the game. Stop. Get rid of all this crap. And so he was like kind of like a sort of father figure to me, like going through the dealership. And then on that, like a Friday night, we'd have drinks and stuff like that.
Yes.
Been 2 weeks, I had a drink, and I think from there, I just started to escalate into an even worse state than I had before getting baptized or whatever like that. I remember then trying to get a more high paying job because of mismanaging finances, all this business. The high paying job involved going to the mines.
Yeah.
And obviously I couldn't pass a urine test. And so I got my mate to do one for me.
Yeah.
And I kind of snuck it in my pants.
Yes.
Dipped it in the vial while they were watching you.
Yeah.
And I managed to get into the mines, and then it was when I was in the mines that I really started to suffer with anxiety, and that was something on my radar I never expected.
Yeah.
You know, just that kind of crippling feeling and not knowing something's not right, you know. And I got out of the mines. You know, my kids went into hospital while I was in the mines, and so I think that's what triggered it, because I couldn't do anything. I was miles away, so I said afterwards, I've got to leave. So I left, came back into the car industry, but back into the alcohol and drugs for
so years were going by again.
Yeah. So
did you tell Hayley about this experience?
Oh yeah, she knew, because when I came back from the mines on one of my breaks, I couldn't be out in public. Like I would just, like, I remember being in Whitford City food court saying to her, like, you got to get me out of here, I got to go. Like it was just too much. Everything was too much. She would sit with me on the couch and I'm just crying, and I'm just having these kind of panic attacks and anxiety. I just didn't know what was wrong with me. Went to the doctor and he put me on, that's when he started me on medication, which was like a form of
antidepressant.
Yeah. And I said to him, why do
Prescribe.
people just get anxiety just like that? And he just went, God knows. You know, that's all he said to me. That was it. He's an Egyptian guy. But, so...
I probably know him.
Is
he a short guy?
Dark hair.
A short guy?
Yeah, he was out in Kinross area. He was out there.
Yeah, I think I know him.
Yeah.
I forgot his name, but he's Egyptian.
Yeah, Egyptian Christian guy, I think he was as well.
Coptic.
Yeah, Coptic, yeah. That's what I reckon. Anyway, so then I would basically... Rafid, yeah.
He's my GP, man.
Is he?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. He's got yeah.
Wow, he's been going for years, eh?
So we used to have a GP who unfortunately passed away.
Oh.
He was our GP for a long, long time. And then we looked for one at Florian, where we live.
Yeah.
And somebody recommended him to us, but he was working up north.
Yeah.
At Whitfords. He's got a clinic at Whitfords.
Yeah.
And he works at maybe another 2 or 3 clinics. And then he opened a clinic at Florian. And he's our family GP.
Oh, wow.
So, small world, imagine this.
Wow, and a Coptic guy, hey, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Great guy, really, really nice guy.
No, he was really good. But obviously, another thing came up as well. I had 3 car accidents in the space of 2 weeks. So then...
Because of anxiety, do you believe? Or?
No, I went to the doctors and I said, look, I'm struggle focusing or whatever like that, and they diagnosed me with ADHD, put me on what's called dextroamphetamines, which to me was great because...
Great drugs.
Yeah, great drugs. So
you don't
I
have to
could
buy
function.
them.
So I was in this place of like dextroamphetamines
antidepressants
to get me through, antidepressants to bring me down, but boy, when you came off them, because, you know, I'd give them to other people in my group and stuff like that as well. I'd run out, and then it's so many weeks until you get the next script.
Yeah, and then you
the
have
crash is horrible.
Oh,
yeah. So
a few days, cold turkey.
Yeah, well, you just you know, you're really emotional. You really kind of you get anxiety and all those kind of things. So more and more with the kids in the mix, and
so you were having kids. You wanted to have kids. Your wife wanted to have kids.
Yeah, Hayley always wanted to be a mum. I was like kind of like along for the ride, kind of, you know. But I was not opposed to having kids.
Sure.
That's why I said when we first got married, I don't want kids straight away. I actually wanted to travel around.
Yes.
But Hayley wanted to do that later when we'd had kids and everything was out of the way. So it was a kind of it was one part of our marriage that we had to settle early on. Yes. And I think because I'd so ingrained in my mind about just travelling around in that, I think for some reason it just really impinged my ability to kind of function normally and build. And
so while you were on in this stage of life where you know you're on medication, how many children did you have at this stage?
3 then.
3.
Yeah, you know, and
how was Hayley handling all this? Were you working? Were you still operational?
Yeah, I mean, I was earning good money. Like, everything on the outside looked good.
Okay.
Like, I was always earning good money.
Was she fully aware of what was going on and the difficulties you were going through?
Yeah, she was. She knew, obviously, with the anxiety and obviously with the drinking, but it's hard because you don't have any other reference point for what
Yes.
is normal and what's not, you know. So to her, she would just deal with it in her stride.
Yeah.
And obviously she would smoke weed as well. So it was like to us, smoking marijuana wasn't a big thing.
No.
It was just like having a drink or
Yeah.
whatever like that, you know.
It was very common. And possibly because the friends that you had always enjoyed the same thing.
Yeah.
So-
Always enjoyed the same thing, always.
Well, you grew up with it almost.
Yeah.
So then how long did this last?
So it was another 2 years. And as I said, got spiraled worse with drinking. And, I was driving really bad. At one time, my wife phoned me. And I would always tell her I'm being home soon. I wouldn't tell her where I was. And I would just, not answer the phone or whatever. But one time she heard me on the phone because I just thrown the phone down on the floor, and I was just kind of like, I was just possessed, just like I want to kill myself. I want to drive it. All I was just focused on was just taking this high-powered vehicle and just driving it straight into a tree, and just and I'd had enough, didn't want to be around anymore. So, and she experienced that on the phone, and yeah, I just knew I was in a real bad place. But the thing is that obviously in our culture we've got many kind of entertainment things that just keep us ticking along. Christmas was coming along.
The next thing all the time.
You just have these little bumps and you push through to the next thing. And so it got to New Year's 2006. I just come off a real long bender, with people around our house and all that kind of stuff. And I was driving back I was back at work, just got back at work, and I was driving back from a failed kind of deal in Bunbury, and I drove to Hillary's Boat Harbour. I went to this Crystal Reflections shop, the new agey shop, because that was always my go-to, and read this book about this child soul being sent to Earth.
Okay.
And he didn't want to leave his father.
Yeah.
And it really broke me because the father was saying, "I'll never leave you. I'll always be with you." And I was, I got to go. I got to get out of here. And I went up to the tower. There used to be a tower above by the Italian cafe.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then I just went, "God, I'm done. I'm yours. I've done nothing but abuse this life that you've given me. I'm yours. Take me, kill me. Whatever you want to do with me, I'm yours." And it wasn't like a bright flash of light or it was just a sudden that peace. And I stopped drinking the next day, stopped smoking weed, started exercising and doing instantly. Like, it was just radical. Like, and I started reading my Bible. I didn't suffer with any effects, withdrawal or anything, and
even the medication you stopped.
Even the medication, no, there was nothing. Just that was it. And I would start reading my Bible.
Yes.
Going through the Gospels, because before I tried to start from the beginning and go through, but just started with the Gospels.
Not much fun.
Wasn't much fun, especially when you get to the names. And then about 2 weeks into it, I thought I best go to a church or something. And then I found a church that was on a Sunday night at North Shore Church in Mindarie there, with Pastor Bruce Chant, and started attending there and plugged in, and that was it. It was just radical, and Hayley thought I'd lost the plot, and she was still, she would still smoke weed, and she was a good mum.
We're trying to bring her into this new life that you discovered, or
no? I actually didn't push her in any way. To her, it was like, well, if it's working for him,
It's good for me.
it's good because everything was changing around. I was like, I took hold of the finances, had like a heap of debt,
Yes.
consolidated it, start paying it off, took no credit lines from anywhere else or anything like that.
Yeah.
Started to get really fit and healthy. I dropped like 30 kilos in 6 months, from boxing training, running, all that kind of stuff, eating properly, and I never felt so good in all my life.
Yeah.
And during that time, we also had, I think, we had a miscarriage then. That was a real kind of like...
Fourth child.
Yeah, and that was hard for Hayley. Then we had... No, actually, I think we had Katie first. I think we had the fourth child first, and then there was a miscarriage. But Katie was born with breathing difficulties, so she had to go on a CPAP machine and all that, and she was in the children's hospital.
Yeah.
But it just spurred me into fasting and prayer and just seeing her, and Hayley saw that as well. And then I said,
You were changing into fatherhood as well, weren't you, by this stage, or still not?
Yeah, I was engaging, obviously with the kids more.
Yeah.
I was being more of a father than I'd ever been, and Hayley was seeing obviously the change.
Yes.
But she didn't come to church for a whole year before, I after my change there. Yeah. So for her, she was just really seeing, is this another fad like he's gone through like with all the others?
Yeah.
And then she saw it was solid, and she saw the real change.
Wow. So it was really being lived out.
Yeah. And I think, the family saw the difference. I, at work as well.
Yes.
I was working at Phoenix Holden at the time, which is really ironic. But yeah,
the devil.
Yeah, the devil picture on there.
Yeah.
But they all saw the change as well, and the mocking and all that kind of stuff didn't
bother
me. I wasn't selling as many cars, but I was still getting good money. Mm-hmm. And I was actually...
The money was going a lot further.
Yeah, the money was going further. I was getting good money, and I had a clear conscience when I was selling, because people would say, "Has this had an accident?" And I'd go, "Yes." And then they would go, "Okay, thanks, bye." And then, but when a good car came in, managed to sell it, and they come and they get good money. So I'd follow up guys and make sure I find them something good. So yeah, that all changed. But then obviously I felt led to go into to university. I applied for ECU and got in, and in 2007 I started university, and that was a 3-year journey really of doing early childhood education. Okay. That's when I really kind of became more of a father figure role, I suppose, and understanding the kids and the importance and everything.
Really got in tune with life, didn't you?
Yeah, I loved it. Everything was just an adventure.
So why early childhood?
I'd always got on well with kids,
Young kids.
Yeah, and I had young kids myself.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I could do something.
And how did you afford going to university? study, wasn't it?
Yeah, study. So this is the thing, and this is how supernatural it was. It was like, here I was earning like 3-figure sum at in the car industry selling, and then going down to roughly around about 25,000 a year. And
with 4 children.
Yeah, with 4 children. But obviously at the time, the government changed a whole bunch of stuff.
Yes. And
so Hayley was able to not have to work. And as you know, in any other country in the world,
you couldn't do it.
Just doesn't happen.
No, you couldn't.
Absolutely. Like I would have to work like 24/7 to have this many kids, and Hayley would have to work as well. But more as I travelled down this path and got involved in ministry.
Yes.
Especially with youth and that, the more I felt called in that direction and saw the education sphere not really calling me. And even my wife would say to me, "I can't really see you as a teacher."
Yeah.
and probably because of my lack of administration skills at that time.
But it did. The process was good for you.
Very good.
So the school was for you, not really for
this
your
started
career.
to get used.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was important.
Yeah, it clicked.
Because when I was young, I was always told I was really bright, but don't apply yourself.
Yeah.
But it felt like I was on, like I was not on drugs or ADHD medication, but I was just sharp and solid, and this thing was just firing, and I was getting high distinctions. Yeah, it was literally like massive restoration, and I believed it.
Yeah.
I was reading that word and it was alive, and I was believing everything it was saying because I was living it. So
when did Hayley come to faith?
Not until probably, for her, it's like a real gradual process. So as I said, she didn't come to church for the first year.
Yes.
And so she shares with me how like her journey in that. But first of all, we went to a small group together, and because they were like going on at me, saying like, "You are married, aren't you? You're not just saying you're married and sporting a ring and whatever." I said, "No, I am actually married. You'll meet her one day." And then she came to the small group,
yes,
and then she started coming to church, and she just thought it was all a bit weird, and people raising their hands, and but then she went on a ladies' camp.
Yeah.
Because I wanted the kids to come to church as well, but to me in the background, I'm just like, I'm not forcing her, I'm not telling her to come, sure. I'm just praying.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy, And I would hold on to that scripture saying that the unbeliever is sanctified through the believer in your marriage.
Yeah.
And gradually they came in, and she went to ladies' camp, and it was her first encounter with the prophetic that kind of really woke her up.
Yes.
Because she met this woman there who was like, they for prophetic words, and they were all the ladies getting prophetic words. Yeah. But she said this woman was just so sharp. She was even telling me stuff that I'm thinking. Yeah. And that's when she knew that there's something to this. There's something real. And then she was still very much committed to family, committed to the kids. But more and more, she started to listen. She started developing her own prayer life. Yeah. That was her development, and obviously me being involved in ministry and stuff like that. There was always the battles of like, she kind of felt like, oh, you're just Matt's wife, and the focus was on me because, as you know, like in the church, we sometimes gravitate to the loudest voice or the most charismatic person in the room, and. She was very solid. A lot of, I think as well, because we had, 5 kids then, coming 6 kids and 7 kids, it was a regular thing. Like our family was growing in this church. Yes. And it wasn't until 2010 that we merged with One Church. And that's when stuff began to come really like real and really... purpose driven, purpose of the church and everything like that.
So when did she make the commitment?
I'm not too sure. Like I said, she got baptized in she made the commitment to follow Jesus, and like I said, it was a bit of a blur, but I think it was around about 2009, I think it was, that she got baptized. So a good, or 2008, a good 2 years, I think, after. Yeah.
So fast forward to now, you are the executive pastor of One Church.
Yep.
At the Light on the Hill Chapel.
Yep.
You are also part of the Southern Cross Association of Churches.
Yep.
Where you lead camps and other ministry initiatives for youth.
Yep.
You obviously run your youth group at your own church. Mm. You also minister in other churches. You lead worship at times.
Yep.
What is it like today, as a father, as a minister? What's your life like today? 8 children.
Yeah.
Husband.
Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day actually, and if I could have seen myself back then. Yeah. And doing what I'm doing now and everything, it's just so bizarre because I was thinking, well, what's my vision for the future and all this kind of thing, you know? And I'm doing the thing that I envisioned doing back then.
Yes.
But it is, I suppose, the most strangest kind of experience in doing all this, because it's a job, but it's not a job.
Yeah.
It's a way of life. It's at one time it's kind of, you feel like the biggest hypocrite in the world. At other times you feel like you're actually doing something for God.
Yeah.
You know, it's all these kind of ups and downs. But I'm just starting to see the idea of legacy beginning to form. And for me, I think if it wasn't for, I suppose, Pastor Paul in my life, and being that rock solid kind of father figure, I don't know where I would be. I probably, you know, I think he stuck with me because I was not an easy puppy to manage. Mm-hmm. You know, I was very much wanting to outreach and just tell people about Jesus all the time and go everywhere and do everything. And he really kind of saw some raw material that needed work, you know, and he stuck by us. I'd like to say it's all been like this excellent record of going through ministry, but I did some real damage to the youth ministry as well when my church merged with the other church. Yeah. At the time, I was starting to kind of get involved with reformed theology. Yes. Very much, you know, listen to the Paul Washer stuff, all this kind of like hardcore reformed theology. And then we kind of merged into this church that's just like out there, you know, just free, like, but just free and just like off the rails. I'm talking like everyone, we're going to stand on chairs and we're going to, do you know what I mean, prophesy, or we're going to do a fire tunnel. And a lot of stuff, you know, we had, you obviously know, like Pastor Candace and all these other guys, and it was just this kind of hotbed of just what's the next thing going to happen. You know, we just didn't know. And I've been put in charge of youth ministry, and I'd taken on a youth ministry that was kind of very young still. Yes. Our guys had merged. We lost a few people from our church because there was a church split over the merge. Yeah. And then Fraser Buchan came to town, and I went and listened to him at Cornerstone, and I was just really heavily impacted by his ministry of just, you know, being sold out totally for Jesus. And I felt like I was just trapped again in this kind of ministry of like with the kids who I felt just didn't get it. And then I felt like our church might be going off the rails because we're not reformed, we're not, you know, all these, it's a theology issue. But really at the end of it was pride. Like pride had really seeped in. I thought I was something because I could quote scripture, because I knew theology. I thought I was better than my leaders because I thought I knew better than them, and they've got it wrong and they're deceived and rah, 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 rah. And that was really not a cool place to be in, because when you're deceived, you don't know. You're in deception, so you just don't see it. You just think you're right. And so Fraser came in, and I thought, you know what? He said, like, if you want to come on a mission, we're going up Carnarvon. Yes. And I was like, yep, I'm there. So I went to youth that Friday and said, guys, I'm stepping down from youth ministry. I didn't even tell Paul or... it was... I'm telling you, I'm not proud of it. And I told my leaders and said, right, you guys are running the show now. I'm out of here. See ya, you know. And bless them, like, even, like, you know, one of the leaders made us a cake as well. Going away cake, you know, and thank you for everything. Farewell. And then like Paul, obviously, and Bruce and Candace and Trish, they just had no idea like this had happened. And I was just so set, like, you know, I'm going, and poor Hayley's in the background here. So I go up north, and because she supports me and everything, like
was she with you, or you went on your own?
No, I went on my own. So she's with the kids.
Yeah.
And look, I did have a miserable time. No, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, we saw people get healed, delivered, set free from demons. Like, it was just like full on, and it was great. I felt alive.
Yes.
And then we had floods. It was back in 2010 when they had the big floods in Carnarvon, so we were stuck there. And obviously the church didn't know what would happen with us. It all just happened, and Hayley was stuck there, and people weren't speaking to Hayley, and they were kind of like, what's going on here? And she was telling me all this. I'm just getting even more angry. But I said to her, look, just don't go to that church. She goes, no, God hasn't told me to leave.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, when I came back, rather than go to the church, I said, no, we're going to a different church, not being a part of that church. And I kicked up such a stink, she came with me to this church just down the road. And not even 5 minutes into this poor preacher preaching, she just gets up and just walks out. And I, like, a bit embarrassed. So I walked out, I was like, what's going on? Like, what? And she's in tears.
Yeah.
She says, don't you ever ask me to disobey the Lord again.
Wow.
And that was such a kick in the guts. The pit of the stomach just went, because it was like real for her. And what have I done? And that's when this whole kind of, it was like a slap, like a Holy Spirit slap out of deception, just like, what have I done? You know? And so I just went off crying in the wilderness for a while, you know, and then I drove up to Paul and Trish's house and, apologized. I said, I'm so sorry. You did nothing wrong to me. I shouldn't have done that. And that started a journey of, doing outreach in the local community. They kind of kept me at a distance for a while. Yeah. Just because, but Paul was given a word from God.
Yeah.
And God told him that if you win with Matt, you're going to win with this generation. And because he saw the fatherlessness. Yeah. And that's what was driving everything. And it was just so blatantly obvious apart from me. Yeah. So insecure, so needed to be affirmed, and needed ministry and all these other things to make me feel like I'm accepted, that I'm significant, that I have security. Yeah. And really I just didn't have a father, I had Heavenly Father, sure, but it was always like that kind of distance. And I, believed everything, the truths of the Bible, what Jesus did for me, but that kind of relationship didn't kind of exist in the real world for me. And that, and I didn't trust Paul, because I thought, well, when are you going to leave? And that's the experience that my stepdad was a good guy. Yeah. But from that father figure with my dad, it's just like, I thought Paul was out for himself and, just interested in his own ego and his own platform. But I was just really seeing myself through Paul. Yeah. It was really me I was looking at, not him. Mm. And that's where I think all the mistrust and all that kind of stuff, but that had to be dealt with. Mm. And,
What's the legacy you want to leave behind?
Oh, the legacy I really want to leave behind is that I was talking about this the other day, is to actually raise up a generation of young people who actually know their Father in heaven. I want to see the church raise up spiritual fathers and mothers in the faith. I want that. The church has been fractured by secular ideas of generational gaps and all this kind of stuff, and I don't believe it's true. Yeah. And I believe that there are so many guys, not only my age but younger, who are fatherless, and we're living with an orphan generation. Yeah. And so the legacy I want to leave is that to build, especially what doing with Southern Cross with the camps, is building relationships amongst the youth future ministers, future leaders,
Yeah.
and raising them in the church together, and ministers like myself, yourself, and others being fathers and mothers and helping raise that next generation up. And if I know that I'm not the answer to all of it,
Yeah.
but I think, if a lot of people get that vision,
Yeah.
we're at least going to start the process, and even if it starts the process, it's worth it.
Yeah, we do our part. We do one shift in our generation towards that end goal.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Matt, for opening up and sharing your life story
No
with
worries.
us, and also the hope for the future. Well, friends, this is just so wonderful that you were able to join us and listen to this beautiful story. What an amazing life. What a turnaround. Only Jesus can do that. And when you think about the legacy that Matt wants to leave and to build, it's just amazing. We do need spiritual mothers and spiritual fathers. If you're watching this or you're listening to this podcast, ask yourself, who is my dad? Who is my spiritual dad? Who is my spiritual mother? If you don't have one, get yourself one as soon as possible. And then you yourself become a spiritual parent for the next generation. We need this. And the season ahead is going to be a great season. Thank you for being with us. Please subscribe to our channel, wherever you're watching this or listening to this podcast, and join us for future testimonies and stories from Down Under. And also, if you don't mind, please share this and rate us. Give us 5 stars. We really love 5 stars. We get our ranking a bit higher and more people can get this. Also, do provide us with feedback and any comments that you have. We're always here to listen to you, and we value you spending your time with us. May the Lord bless you, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you for joining us on Kingdom Stories from Down Under. We'd love it if you would subscribe, rate, and share these stories with your wider community. And remember, every story is worth sharing, including yours.